30 days. One simple rule. And it changed something in our marriage we did not even realize was broken. Things had not fallen apart. They had just gotten quiet. The kind of quiet that creeps in so slowly you almost miss it. Until one day you realize you cannot remember the last time you really laughed together, really talked, really felt close. So we made a decision. One rule. Every single day for 30 days. No exceptions. What happened surprised us both. Stay with us. Because what we learned might change something for you too. Every day for 30 days we would put our phones down, sit together, and ask each other one real question. Not logistics, not what is for dinner. A real question that opened a door. Questions like, what has been on your mind that you have not told me? What made you smile today? What do you wish I understood about you better? 5 minutes. Every day. One real question. That was it. Week 1. The awkward beginning. The first few days were uncomfortable. We will not pretend otherwise. Day 1 we sat down together, phones face down, and looked at each other. And what came first was silence. Not the comfortable kind. The awkward kind. The kind that tells you how long it has been since you sat together with no screen, no distraction, nothing to hide behind. The first question felt forced. The answer felt rehearsed. We both laughed nervously and admitted it felt strange. Like two people trying to make conversation at a party where they used to know each other well but somehow lost the thread. By day 3 it got a little easier. Small things started coming out. Things that had been sitting quietly inside one of us for weeks. Small frustrations. Small joys. Things that would have never found their way into a normal conversation because there was never a space made for them. By day 5 we noticed something. A small shift. A quiet anticipation at the end of the day. A sense that this moment belonged only to us. By day 7 we had talked more meaningfully in 1 week than we had in the previous month. And neither of us had expected that. Week 2, something starts to open. Week 2 is where things started to get interesting. The questions got deeper. Not because we planned it, but because the first week had quietly built something between us. A small but real sense of safety. A feeling that whatever came out in these 5 minutes would be received with openness rather than judgment or defensiveness. On day 9, one of us asked, "Is there anything you have been afraid to tell me?" The silence after that question lasted almost a full minute, and then something came out that had been sitting beneath the surface for months. Not a confession, not anything dramatic, just a worry. A quiet fear that had been carried alone because there never seemed to be the right moment to say it out loud. And the other person listened, not to fix, not to defend, not to immediately offer a solution, just listened. That night felt different, lighter, like something invisible had been released that had been taking up space between us without either of us realizing it. By day 11, the 5 minutes were extending naturally, not because the rule required it, because we did not want to stop. On day 13, one of us said something that stopped the other completely. "You know, I think I had forgotten who you were, outside of everything we have to manage together." And the other person said quietly, "I think I had forgotten too." That was the moment we both knew this 30 days was going to matter. Week 3. The real breakthroughs. Week 3 brought the most surprising moments of the entire 30 days. On day 16, the question was, "When do you feel most loved by me?" The answers were not what either of us expected. Because the things the other person named were not the grand gestures, not the anniversaries or the gifts or the big moments. They were the smallest, most ordinary things. The way one of us always made sure the other had eaten before leaving the house. The way one of us remembered something small that had been mentioned weeks ago and quietly acted on it. The way one of us reached for the other's hand during a difficult phone call without even thinking about it. We had both been loving each other in ways the other person deeply felt, but had never named out loud, and we had no idea. That conversation changed the way we saw each other, because suddenly the ordinary moments had weight. Suddenly the small things were not small anymore. On day 18, the question was, "What is something you have given up that you miss?" That one sat heavy for a while, and what came out of it was a conversation about identity. About how much of ourselves we had quietly set aside in the process of building a life together. Not with resentment, but with a kind of tender grief that had never had a place to go before. We talked for a long time that night, And at the end of it, we made two small promises to each other: to protect something in the other person that was just theirs. Something that had nothing to do with the marriage or the family, but belonged only to them. On day 20, the question was, what do you wish our marriage looked like 5 years from now? That conversation lasted an hour. We talked about things we had not spoken about in years. Dreams that had been quietly shelved. Places we wanted to go. The kind of old age we wanted to grow into, side by side. We went to bed that night feeling closer than we had felt in a very long time. Not because anything had been fixed, but because we had remembered what we were building toward together. Week 4, when it becomes natural. By week 4, the rule had stopped feeling like a rule. It had become something we both moved toward at the end of the day. A ritual. A small protected space in the middle of an overwhelming life, where the two of us could breathe. The questions had become easier to ask, not because they had gotten lighter, but because the muscle had been built. Asking something real and being received with care had become familiar, and familiar things stopped feeling frightening. We noticed things changing that we had not expected. We were arguing less, not because the problems had disappeared, but because the small things were being spoken before they had the chance to build into something bigger. The irritations that used to simmer quietly for days were coming out earlier, softer, before they became resentment. We were more patient with each other, more willing to give the benefit of the doubt. When one of us was quiet or distant, the first thought was no longer "what did I do wrong?" It was, "I wonder what they are carrying right now." That shift alone changed everything about how conflict felt between us. We were laughing more. The small, ordinary kind of laughter that belongs only to two people who know each other from the inside. On day 25, one of us reached across the table after the question was answered and just held the other person's hand for a moment, without saying anything. And something about that silence felt fuller than any conversation we had ever had. On day 28, without planning it, we both said the same thing at the same time. We should have been doing this years ago. The results. 30 days. One simple rule. 5 minutes a day. Here is what actually changed. We remembered who the other person was beneath all the roles. Beneath the parent and the provider, and the person who manages the schedules and the bills and the logistics of a shared life, there was still the human being we had chosen. And that human being had been there all along, waiting quietly to be asked about. We stopped assuming we knew what the other person was thinking or feeling, because 30 days taught us how often we were completely wrong about that. How much was happening inside the other person that we had no idea about because we had never made a space for it to come out. We stopped taking each other for granted. Not perfectly, not completely. We are still human, but more than before. Because when you sit with someone every day and ask them something real, and really listen to the answer, it becomes harder to treat them like background, harder to move through the same space and forget to actually see them. We fell back into something we had lost without realizing we had lost it. Not the early, dramatic kind of falling. The quieter kind. The kind that comes from truly knowing someone and choosing to stay. And perhaps most importantly, we stopped waiting for the big moments to connect. Because we learned that connection is not built in the big moments. It is built in the 5-minute ones. The small, consistent, ordinary ones that most couples keep meaning to have and never quite get to. What the rule actually did. The rule was never really about the questions. It was about attention. About saying every single day, through action rather than words, you are worth putting everything else down for. You matter more than whatever is on that screen. You are the person I choose to be present with. It was about creating a container. A small, protected daily space where the relationship could breathe. Where the two people inside the marriage could exist, not as parents or partners in logistics, but simply as two human beings who love each other and want to keep knowing each other. It was about practicing. Because love is not only a feeling, it is a skill. And like every skill, it deepens with practice and fades with neglect. The 30 days was practice. 30 consecutive days of choosing to show up for each other in a small but real way. 5 minutes does not sound like much, but 5 minutes of genuine attention given consistently across 30 days is 150 minutes of real connection. And for most couples, that is more meaningful connection than they manage in an entire year of living together. What happened after the 30 days? We kept going. Not because we felt we had to, but because we did not want to stop. The rule had become a ritual, and the ritual had become something we both protected, something that belonged to us in the way that certain things in a long marriage come to belong to you. Private, quiet, ours. The questions changed over time. Some nights they were deep, some nights they were lighter. Sometimes one of us was tired, and the question was simple, and the answer was short, and that was enough. But the commitment stayed. The phones went down. The 5 minutes happened. The space was held. And what we found was that a marriage does not have to fall apart dramatically to be in need of attention. It can be perfectly functional on the outside and slowly starving on the inside. And the smallest, most consistent acts of attention are often what bring it back. Not a grand gesture, not a difficult conversation, not a major change, just 5 minutes, every day, one real question, and the willingness to really listen to the answer. If your marriage has gotten quiet, we want to say something to you gently. It does not have to stay that way. You do not need a crisis to justify paying attention to each other. You do not need something to go wrong before you decide to show up more fully for the person you chose. Tonight, put your phone down. Sit with them. Ask something that matters. What has been on your mind that you have not told me? What made you feel good this week? What do you wish I understood about you better? And then listen, not to respond, not to fix, just to know them a little more than you did before. Do it again tomorrow, and the day after, for 30 days. And 30 days from now, leave us a comment and tell us what changed. We would love to hear your story. Subscribe to this channel for more content about relationships, connection, and building a marriage that actually lasts. Share this video with someone whose marriage deserves a little more attention, and watch the next video on your screen to keep going. Thank you for being here. It means more than you know.